Hello, my name is Beth Albaneze, and I am in Maryland and very happy to be a part of the faculty. I own a business, House Calls Total Wellness, and today, as a result of my years of experience with people with disabilities, with all types of issues that have to do with advocacy, I taught a class on active listening at the college here for many years. And I feel that one of the most important things that I learned over my course of experience myself, personally, professionally, is using active listening to validate anyone, even your spouse. So I want to begin by just starting my slides and letting you know, though, that Evan Taft, who you see, is my technical support. So I'll be telling him to change the slides as we go. So let's start talking about active listening. So as you can see, this is only just a second to tell you where I work and what I do, just so that when I give you opinions, I think you should know why I have the opinion I have, because I do have a lot of experience in this field. This is the business, House Calls Total Wellness, and we provide in-home and virtual coaching, counseling, recreation, fitness, advocacy, everything you can think of with specialists all under one umbrella. And every one of these specialists in all the different fields need to learn active listening skills in order to be effective and in order to establish trust and rapport. So let's go to the next one. So what does active listening mean? Well, first of all, if you see this picture, and this is someone that I worked with for many, 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 many years. You see, she's smiling. She's not always smiling. I can tell you that right now. So we're lucky when we can utilize skills with our seniors, the people that you're going to be talking to, encountering, meeting along the way, personally or professionally. You look at their body language and the way they look on their face to be able to determine whether you're getting through to somebody. Next slide. So what are the active listening techniques? First of all, you want to listen to the content, the voice, and the body, meaning you're going to get an idea of what they're saying, and you're going to see whether their voice sounds angry, agitated, really sweet, soft, mild, demure. It's very important because that is the language of the person that you're relating to until you get to using your active listening skills. They're unspoken. The communication to the person, the unspoken, is really through understanding all of their body language, content, and voice. So you want to communicate to anybody that you understand them. And it's all to build trust and assist in the person becoming aware of their own feelings. So while you're learning the techniques and communicating to this person, you also want to reflect on your own values and your own intrinsic feelings that's going on to make sure that you understand your feelings. And if you're going too far into creating your own opinion with somebody or determining what you think they should do and giving advice, that is not active listening. Next slide. So the essentials for active listening in order to begin anywhere is your eyes. Your eyes are the voice before you talk, looking at someone with compassion, having your voice very low, even if theirs is very high, not low to the point where someone can't hear you, but soft and supportive. Your body language should be open. And actually, if I was doing this, I would not be crossing my legs. I would not even be folding. This looks withdrawn. I'd keep my hands on my knees, and I would try to either put my hand on the desk. If I'm on the desk, fold my hands so it shows that I'm engaging. I would lean forward, and I would use positive energy, but not so much energy that you're overwhelming the person, because I've done that over many, many, many years. I have a lot of energy and I displayed it, and I overwhelmed the person I was working with because they just actually didn't appreciate it. Next slide. So the first thing you want to do is you want to look at the person, as I said, and you're going to use eye contact, the tone, all of that. You want to, first of all, make sure you're sitting if they're sitting, and you're standing if they're standing. You never want to give any superior attitude. That's very important. You want to be on the same eye level as the other person. You also want to look at their body language, and if they're leaning in, which means they're establishing more intimacy, then you want to lean in and show that you're establishing more intimacy. Don't assume anything from what they're saying. Make sure that before you go into leading the conversation, you want to clarify, and you want to validate, and you want to summarize. All of these are all in one, and it seems like it's step by step, but it's not. Once you learn the skills, you're kind of going back and forth between clarifying, validating, and summarizing. So if someone says, I can't stand school, you would first say, so you're saying you can't stand school? Tell me a little bit more about that. Because what does that mean? That's a very big generic statement. They can't stand school, they can't stand the teacher, they can't stand the pressure. What does that mean? Next slide. So when someone's talking, as they're talking and they're expressing all of their either frustration, trauma, it could be sadness, it could be elation, it could even be very manic in their behavior, very impatient. You want to look for the feeling and try to pull out just one, because they might look like they're feeling all of these feelings. There's a number of adjectives I've just given you, but what is the essential feeling you think that you can start with? So I'm getting the sense that you're really agitated right now. And then they might talk more and say what they're not saying. So you just kind of want to start slowly pulling out an adjective and trying to get them to just start somewhere, because they're all over the place in what they're saying to you. While you're doing that, you also want to make sure you consider cultures. If you're working with someone and you're older than them, a lot of cultures do not give an authority figure eye contact if they're older, or if they're wise, and if they're superior in education. So you want to know that it doesn't mean that they're shy. I was supervising students many years ago, and I had a student from the Philippines, and I gave her an evaluation because I was director of students back then. And I told her that she needed to work on giving more eye contact to the people that she's working with, to show that she's engaged. I went on and on and on, and then she interrupted me because we'd known each other for so long by then. She was very comfortable giving me feedback. She says, Beth, you don't understand. I respect you, and you're older than I am. And in our culture, I'm not going to look you in the eye because that's a lack of respect. So I went, oh, I learned something too every day. Next slide. So you want to be aware of triggers. You can de-escalate a situation very easily if you start seeing how someone's acting to your validation, your summarizing, your clarifying, whatever element of the active listening component you're in, you need to stop if you see any triggers that they look uncomfortable. And what you do is you just stop, and in your controlled voice, which it says next, stay in control, you use your active listening. I sense that something's bothering you right now. I sense that I said something, or I noticed that. Everything is an I statement. You don't say, you look this or you look that. You say, I sense that, I get the feeling that, I'm worried that, whatever it is, it's an I statement. And then you can diffuse the situation. You reflect on what they say. So if they say that they didn't like what I just said, whatever that is, and you got really sorry, let's just clarify again. And you just go back and you start again. Because if you don't reflect, and check in with the person you're engaging with, then you're bound to escalate the situation, and you lose all the work you tried to do in getting to know that person because you didn't really see the triggers. Next page. So the feeling statements that I just referred to are these feeling statements. These are excellent feeling statements. when I was teaching at the college, I must have had 20 feeling statements. And if you want in the future, I can certainly email them to you so you can have them as well. But just as a beginning, since we have a certain amount of time, feeling statements are easy if you say, sounds like, because that's easy to remember. I get the feeling. I'm sensing that. Oh, it must feel, that's a real compassionate beginning. Or from what I gather, all of these and more are starting to hook into the person that you get them. So it sounds like you're feeling really upset. The person might say, I'm not really upset. I get the feeling that you're really overwhelmed. I didn't say that. And then you go back and you clarify. And this is for anybody, whatever setting you work in. I can tell you that active listening techniques are worth every penny if you use them. Next page. So, as I said, you can't reflect enough and you can't restate enough. You want to restate the sentence sensitively. Repeat every so often what you think the person just said to you, not by parroting it back, but by paraphrasing what you heard in your own words. For example, you would say, let's see if I'm clear about this. Or I want to make myself more clear. I want to make sure I'm understood. Whatever it is, you can repeat, restate, so that the person sees you're really, really trying to capture what they're saying. Next slide. So, one thing that's very important when you work with anybody or you engage with anybody, because you're not necessarily working with them, depends on whether you're in a senior center, whether you're a provider doing a training, whether you're at home. The most important thing is try to get them to tell you what specifically they mean by what they're saying. Because a lot of people just come to all kinds of conclusions. They might make assumptions. Where's the evidence to support that everything they said happened or that there's a basis for it? So you go back and use that in your summary, and you basically think of something that they said was clearly what happened. That person did lock the door on you. That person did open a real issue, embarrassing you in front of everyone. That's evidence-based conversation. You can react to that because you know that definitely happened. But if they say, I can't stand that person, I know that person doesn't like me either. Well, where's the evidence to support that? So you don't want to go on a journey with someone made all with assumptions. For example, again, you start with your I statements. So it sounds to me as if, or you meant that. I'm getting the feeling that it sounds so patronizing, I know. And I feel that you might be thinking, oh gosh, this person's going to feel so patronized. They're going to say, what are you doing? Well, if they do, that means you need more practice. And the whole thing about active listening, I have a series 1 and a series 2 and a series 3, because after the initial, I could come back to you, or I do come back to places and I give them role plays. So one person is the listener, the other person is the person reporting their complaints or their story, and then they take turns. Next slide. So you need to understand that mastering reflective listening is essential in order to make a connection. The goal is to establish trust and rapport. So if you notice that you are not getting anywhere, it could be for many, many reasons, and it might not have to do with the fact that you don't have the skill yet. It could be that person has a disability and they're getting very insulted because they have such paranoia or distrust anyway that you wouldn't have really happened to be successful on the first try. It could be that someone has dementia and they just can't sit and get both sides of the story. An individual who has Asperger's, a lot of times they are very, very interested in what you have to say until they have something they have to say. And if they're fixated on what they have to say, they need to get that out before you start using your skills. And then they will definitely feel heard. So the goal is to understand the person or the group you're talking to, Be patient and realize that every human being is different. Even if they have the same disability, you can say someone with ADD does this, someone with depression does that. That's not true. Every individual is different. So you have to find some kind of hook to establish that rapport with that individual, taking all of this into account, of course, but realizing that it's you in the room with that person, and it's only you that is going to either make it or break it with them trusting you. Next one. So some of the tips that are involved in the active listening journey, you want to also give a person hope, and that is providing options. So someone could be really on a tangent about being angry at somebody, and you can say, I'm sensing that you really, really can't get over this. I'm sensing also that you don't want to talk right now about any other alternatives. But then you segue slowly into them giving you some kind of options that they might have with this person, with this situation. And then it's coming from them. And then you work on the option issue, which you can go further on because there might be a solution. A lot of people who perseverate and who talk on a tangent, they need to do that. And unless you break that cycle in their brain by distraction, you're not going to get anywhere. You do want to let the person control the conversation, that is for sure, but not to the point where the person has all the power. So that is where it's very, very interesting how you use your knowledge and your abilities, because you have to subtly take back some of the conversation if someone is really not listening, talking in a way that's disrespectful, has some type of issue with someone else, and that's all they're talking about. You have to just kind of veer them back and say, well, that's very interesting, but I need you to be more specific. And when they're more specific, they have to stop, they have to think what's specific. And then they start to unravel all that perseveration and they get to a different thought. You want to follow their lead. You never want to tell them what they should be thinking. Should is not in this equation at all. You never, ever should do anything. It's suggested, it's recommended, and that is only as you summarize your time with anybody. At the end, you might want to give them a little feedback that isn't necessarily a total I statement. But role modeling with other people, if you have any people in work, at home. When my kids were little, I would practice with them using active listening. And as I said, I taught it. And I remember they would say, you're doing the angry thing again. They could just tell that I was using a technique and practicing it. So after a while, I think I got better. But if someone is looking at you and they're giving you this kind of, what are they doing? That means you just need to practice more. And the way to do that is to prepare and do role modeling, have reverse roles with each other. And everything you do with active listening, unless the person is talking to you about something devastating and tragic, you certainly don't want to have a voice that's high energy and seems like you're enjoying the conversation when the person needs to be taken very seriously. But if the person is talking about lighter subjects, well, try to enjoy it, because if they enjoy meeting you and interacting with you, they're going to leave wanting to see you again, if that's going to be the case. Next slide. So you want to repeat your interactions with this person. You want them to understand that you are not in this conversation to tell them what to do and how to think. You're in this conversation to support them and walk with them, even walk behind them until they get to some type of feeling of comfort and they can move forward from whatever is bothering them. That's how they feel mastery. They need to feel mastery in their environment. They need to feel mastery in their life. They need to feel mastery with themselves, alone even. And so mastery is a big, big word, but what does mastery mean? It depends. So you want to really find out what that person needs to feel mastery. And if it's not that type of setting that you work in, where you need to go that deep with someone, then it's just good for you to know these techniques and not use them all, because you don't have to. It is important, though, that you take baby steps with people. Don't jump into something that is really horrible that they're talking about when they're talking about that situation. Try to go back to it, but you might want to say things, I sense you're handling this better than a lot of other people. And that's not talking about the subject yet. You're just letting them know that you see their inner strength. The interchange between the two of you, and it could be a group, but I'm just saying right now, the interchange needs to be purposeful. And that's what I mean. If you feel that you're on a journey talking to someone about nothing and it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and it's really getting to the point where you almost have to leave, then you have to go back and say, why was that not purposeful? What happened that we went down the wrong track and I couldn't redirect them? Because redirecting them back is part of how you get into staying on task or staying on the subject matter. You also don't want to talk down to people. Some people who are older may have dementia, but that doesn't mean you're going to talk to them like they're a teenager or a child. You talk to them age appropriately, for sure. If someone says to you that who you're speaking with has the mental age of a 12-year-old, but they are 80, that's different, because then it's uncomfortable to talk above where their level of ability is. But you still have to be respectful in any way and not talk to them like a parent. Parenting is not going to establish rapport and trust. Next slide. So now I want you to think about an exercise. And if you were all with me together, we could have that interchange and I would give you much more feedback. And I can certainly send you information on this exercise if you're interested. But real quickly, if you could get a pen and a piece of paper, if you don't already have one, I'd like you to draw a circle, draw a box, draw a triangle, draw a squiggle, and draw a rectangle. I'll give you a minute to do that. Now I'd like you to look at all of the symbols you drew and circle one that you're drawn to the most. Circle one you're drawn to the most. Now quickly circle another one you're drawn to after that. You only can choose two. Now I'm going to tell you what this is called. And if you want more information, first of all, there are books on it, but I can talk to you anytime afterward. The circle is the sign of harmony. And that means these are different types of strengths people may have. And sometimes your strength is more with harmony than it is with something else. So you want to be aware of your strengths and also see how you come with something to the table. Everybody has a skill that they offer. So if you drew a circle, that means that you have an inner strength harmonizing a situation, trying to get the group to not fight, not to have conflict, but to keep them all in sync with each other. The box, if you chose the box is a sign of loyalty. It's an archive. People who choose the box, a lot of them have worked in the same setting for many, many years. They're the people you go to and ask information about, because believe me, they'll have file cabinets on it. They are very dedicated to what they're doing, and they have a lot of information that is evidence-based to support why they're telling you the information they're telling you, because they're like a historian. The triangle is a leadership sign. That sign, if you drew it, is the sign of people who want to get to the top. They want to achieve. They want to be a CEO, or they want to be a principal of a school. but they also have to watch it, because people who draw the triangle are people who are very competitive. And if you know yourself, you know that you don't want to step on anybody's toes. So you have to be aware of that competition not costing you relationships because you want to get to the top. And so the triangle has a little work to do because it's such a strong leadership sign. The squiggle is the creative sign. Those are the people that if you're in this session right now and you're bored, you're probably looking out the window or you can't wait to leave, because the squiggle gets too agitated when they don't feel creative and they don't like to waste time. So they need to feel that there's a purpose for them giving themselves to a cause, a situation, a project. They have to feel intrinsically rewarded and creative. And the last one is the rectangle. And the rectangle is a transition sign. A lot of the students I taught for many years chose rectangles because they were young, and even some of them were from different areas and started their careers all over again. They were in transition. And so rectangle is the transition side. You're moving from one thing to another. It could be divorce. It could be a change of career. But whatever it is, you need to give yourself patience and understanding if you're in that sign, if you have that sign. So if you look at all of these signs, which is called psychogeometrics, you will see that they have a lot of strengths to them when it comes to an individual, because you're all part of a group and there's probably one symbol of each one of these in every group. And when you're aware of what you bring to the table, the harmony, the loyalty, the leadership, the creativity, and the transition, all is in sync rather than competing with each other. We all make a contribution, and we all have to understand everybody is unique in their own way, but there's commonality if we establish trust and rapport. Next slide. So in ending, we all want to provide and have a sense of security, a sense of continuity, a sense of belonging, a sense of achievement, and a sense of significance. And I hope that you will use the active listening. Thank you so much.